Welcome to the ABCs of swallowing. I'm very excited to have you aboard. Today is February 13th, just before Valentine's, just before the Cincinnati Bengals win the Super Bowl tonight, and on a Sunday with beautiful snow on the ground in the year 2022. Welcome aboard. You're going to hear my parakeet in the background, and I welcome all questions. You can either use the chat or you can take yourself off of mute and say, what did you say? What are you talking about? But I'm very body oriented, so I'd love for you to experience what I'm talking about. And that's why I asked you to bring a mirror. If you have a mirror, and it'd be good to have a little water. And if you have a flashlight, you can look into your mouth with the flashlight. Like so. And this is a class that I call, is called Living Anatomy. That's the term I use because I'm teaching you anatomy, but we're living it. So we're alive, we're embodied, we're moving, we're feeling, and we're doing while we're learning, which I find very exciting. So I'm going to ask you to take your mirror. You know what I think we'll do first is I'll just show you a little bit of the anatomy so you get an idea of what we're talking about. So I'm going to share the screen. You're going to see a little bit of this agenda. I have an agenda for our class. See if I can move this over. So we're going to go right away to this head and neck basic concepts. We're going to look at pictures. So if you're not familiar with some of the structures here, we know the important part is here, the bottom, which is the mandible. And then this bone is the maxilla. So let's put your hands on your mandible. Let me see you with your hands on your mandible. That's it. That's it. And let me see you with your hands on your maxilla. Okay. Good. Okay, you know your nose is here, your nasal septum. So you can put your fingers on the soft cartilage on the bridge of your nose. And then behind that, you have your nasal concha, and your sinuses behind that, and you have sinuses up here. This is the hard frontal bone. Okay. And then back here, you have something called the palatine bone. Now I have my skull here, and I have the jaw here. And so you can get an idea, a three-dimensional idea of what we're talking about. And this is the jaw, and I'm going to open the skull around the jaw, which is the first movement once you're born that you make, which is to move your skull over your jaw. And this is the mandible, right? And this is the maxilla, right? So you're opening over that and closing. As you get older, you move the distal end, which is the mandible under the maxilla. But I want you to feel the opening of your head over the mandible. And then when you open your mouth, you're going to see inside structures. Okay, so you get an idea here. I'm going to put that down for now. We're going to go to the side of the head. You see we have the brain within the cranial cavity. You have cranial foci. We're not really so interested in that right now. I am interested in this joint, which is the temporal mandibular joint. It has some of the strongest muscles. Some people say it's the strongest muscle in the body. And you see your teeth. So here's your maxilla, and here's your mandible. And here's something called a coronoid process that sits under this wing, which is called the zygoma. And there's a muscle for chewing, and that sits, it attaches right here and goes down to the base. And they've just discovered, it's called the masseter. They just discovered there's a third masseter, which connects to this little process here, this point, and also goes underneath the other two masseters. So it looks like you have a third masseter. So you have an outer masseter, a deeper masseter, and the deepest masseter connects to this coronoid process. So that's very exciting news, and you're probably one of very few people who realize that there's a third masseter muscle. So bravo, that's exciting. Here we have a better diagram. And there's muscles that attach to these bones. Okay, we have sinuses. And now we have the side here. So when you open your mouth, you're going to see your tongue. You're going to see the epiglottis. And I'm going to ask you to find this tip of this bone, which is the first cervical vertebrae. It's called the atlas. And then, well, let's go ahead and do that. Take your mirror, take your flashlight, and see what you can find. Open your mouth and look inside. You see the top of your mouth, you see what's called the hard palate. You may need to stick your mirror inside your mouth. I've got a small mirror. Now your palate will take on the shape of whatever you put in it as a child. So how many people sucked their thumbs? And if you put your thumb up in the hard palate, it will fit perfectly now as an adult. No, mine does. So that's fun. Are there any questions at this point? Barbara, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
No.
No, you're okay. Either you can put your mute on or keep it off. If you're going to ask anything, it's fine. I welcome. Go ahead, Helga.
I just want to be clear. And so the first movement is that AO joint movement.
It's actually at the TMJ.
That's what I wanted to clarify. Like, is it the TMJ or is it the AO? And then of course, they can be separate movements. Like the TMJ, you can lift the hard palate and the upper portion of the head without moving the AO joint. Is that correct? I mean, I'm confused about this. And
yeah,
that's what
we'll ask her again because she then corrected it. We're talking about Bonnie Cohen. She corrected it on Friday. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I did, but anyway, but I'm just confused about whether, well, first of all, these are two movements and apparently, okay. So you can move
yeah, you can move the jaw over the mandible, or you can move the mandible under the jaw. But in babies,
and you can move the AO joint, and if you do, the maxilla will go with it. The head, everything. Well, depending on if you stabilize the lower jaw. then if you move the AO joint, the whole upper portion, the maxilla will go with the AO joint.
That's right.
So there are 3 movements.
You could say that.
And then the first one is this TMJ movement where you move, it's not the AO joint, but it's just the opening of the mouth lifting with the hard palate.
Yeah,
And-
it's the sucking. The first thing you do is sucking.
Very good.
Okay, and
Okay.
you're moving your head over the jaw. Okay.
Excuse me, but we can't
Stephanie.
do that. Oh,
Do you have my link? From all my links are the same. Do you have that link from my exercise class? Yep, we're going. If you have it, that'd be great. And do you have it? Happy birthday to you. Hang on, everyone. I want to send this to you. Okay, it is the same. So write this number down: 288-141-5085.
I can't move by this part of my head. I can move the jaw. No.
You can't move up one?
Can you?
Okay, we just lost somebody.
Can you hold your jaw still? No, don't open your jaw. Can you move the
Right,
top
thank
of
you,
it?
right. Okay, so
I want to ask.
Am I doing that?
No. I have a question.
yes,
Yeah, I can move my jaw, but I cannot. I mean, I can move muscles in my mouth, but there's no way I can move my top of my head.
yes. So
Wait.
if you hold your jaw and you put your fingers on your TMJ, first of all, let's just open. Let's just open your jaw.
I can do that, no problem. But can I move the top of my head like a baby away from my jaw? No.
So now you have to hold your jaw stationary. And I've got my elbows on something that doesn't move. And then I'm going to lift up and over and back. And then I'm going to bring it together. And that's moving my head over the jaw. And that's the first movement in infants.
Okay. I can't hold my jaw still.
You could do it with each other. You could hold Gloria's and Gloria's could hold yours.
And that movement you're describing, Sarah, is all without moving the AO joint?
Well, you're moving the AO joint. We're not thinking about the AO joint.
But you are, when you go up, when you go that high, you start to move the AO joint. The baby starts to,
I'll hold your jaw.
There's flexion of the AO joint.
Try and move.
okay.
Now you have to tilt it back. In other words, tilt your head back. Without.
Sarah, I have a question.
I can't do it.
When moving it up, the eyes should follow the direction, or should be independent? Should stay level.
When you watch a baby nursing, it's actually very small movement, and it will look, the eyes will be focused forward while the baby's nursing. But because we're traveling with everything together, we're experimenting, we're bringing the eyes with the skull.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So maybe start this way, straight ahead.
Mm-hmm. So you put your fingers on your TMJ. And if you have a desk, you can put your elbows on the desk. Gloria, what do you have?
Movable perch.
So this is actually a principle in body mind centering, is that you can work with any joint this way, moving the distal part under the proximal part, or moving the proximal part over the distal. And the truth is the movements start first with proximal movement and then with distal. So when a baby develops, it first learns to move the whole body and wriggle in spinal movements. And the hands are flexed, if you remember. And then eventually you go from this flexion into extension. And eventually, for those who've been studying, you have that opening, which is part of the moro, and then enclosing, which is part of the embracing. Baby comes to cross the center line, cross the midline. That doesn't develop until later. So the first movements are of the proximal, and here the head is proximal and the jaw is distal. The jaw just hanging from the head, essentially. It's like a sling. So when you're nursing, you have several reflexes that help you. The sucking.
You can almost get it. I mean, I can't.
Yeah, this is, you'll play with this. You'll have to play with this. These are ideas to play with. You suck, you press the nipple, you suck the nipple into your mouth to the hard palate, then it goes higher to the soft palate. The tongue pushes against the nipple to cause the milk to eject. The mother has a reflex that ejects her milk. Hopefully it's not too fast or too strong. And then the baby, the vacuum created, pulls the milk out. Gloria, where are you going? Gloria's up and away. All right, and then you swallow. So you have three elements in nursing, which is the suck, the swallow, and the breathing. So your baby has to reach for the nipple with its mouth. We call that mouthing. It feels the stimulus of the nipple, so it turns towards the nipple that's rooting. It sucks the nipple in, so that's the sucking reflex. The mother lets down her milk, and the vacuum that's created, there's a vacuum that draws the milk out too, the negative pressure. The positive pressure is the pressure of the tongue against the nipple. And then the negative pressure is the closing of the back of the throat, so the milk comes out. The baby has to take a breath, or it swallows and then takes a breath. So it's usually suck, swallow, and breathe. So try that. You can use your finger in your mouth if you feel like your fingers are clean. Sometimes if you're in my house, I have a pacifier, or I put a glove on my finger and I put it in your mouth, and I feel a healthy baby will have a really strong suck. And so that's one of the ways that you can score whether a child is normal development, is how strong that suck is. And this, technically it's called the APGAR score. There's 10 parameters. That's important if you have a baby and you want to know, is it normal, is it preterm, whatever.
So Sarah, for the mouthing or the sucking, are the lips involved in it in any manner? In the
Yeah,
sucking
the
or
lips are around the areola. The areola is actually drawn in. That's the dark circle around the nipple. That should go into the mouth as well. And then the lips form the seal on the breast.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see what I have here. You might like to see different, would you want to see different nursing, short nursing videos? So you can
Yes.
see what it looks like? Okay, let me see if I can get that for you. Let's stop this here for a second. I did want you to notice certain structures in the mouth, so we're going to go back to that. I want you to look inside your mouth now that you know some of what's going on. And I want you to see all the structures there. So I will point them out on my mouth, and you can see my mouth. Can you see? Okay, first of all, can you identify the uvula? You know what the uvula is?
That
Is that
little,
the bell that's hanging at the end? Bell-like?
The bell that's hanging at the end. And the question is, does anybody here have a different shape to their uvula? I've had a couple of people with a double uvula. It looked like there's two parts of it. It had one that was a heart shape almost. I'm going to change the view. Do you guys see the screen? There's one view. Let's go back to this view. I think we have a frontal view somewhere. Oops. Okay, here we go. Here's the uvula. Here's some swollen tonsils. These are the palatine tonsils. You actually have 3 sets of tonsils. This is the soft palate, which is behind the hard palate. So first of all, can you find your uvula? Yes. And is your uvula a one hanging tissue? Okay, nobody has 2. Pretty amazing. Okay, can you touch the hard palate? Okay, can you touch your tongue? Can you lift the tongue up to the top of the mouth? And now what about that piece of skin that attaches your tongue called the frenulum? Can you hold your tongue all the way up to the top of your mouth and lower your jaw all the way down and cluck? Okay, so that helps to stretch the frenulum. Sometimes people have what they call tongue tie, where that frenulum is so short and tight, the tongue doesn't move easily. It affects the speech, it affects the swallowing, it affects breastfeeding. So let me see your frenulum if you can get really close. Okay, I think I see yours, Helga. Can you open your jaw, Helga, and keep your tongue at the top? Yeah, okay, that looks good. Stephanie, can I see yours? Is your tongue all the way up? Yeah, now I have a slight side view. If you look right into the camera. Okay. Okay, good. Gloria and Doris? Can I see your tongue? And can you lift it to the top? Yes, that looks like it's going. Can you keep it up and open all the way? I can't quite get mine all the way. And Doris, does yours open more? You put your tongue in the top of your mouth. I can't see without a flashlight. Can you turn the flashlight into your mouth instead of in your eyeball? Okay, is your tongue at the roof of your mouth? And can you open your jaw any further without dropping your tongue? No. Okay, so you might have a short frenulum. Okay, but that never affected your speech, huh? You take off your mute.
I used to have cats and I could never say kitty litter because I can't do that T without curling my tongue.
And can you say it now, Kitty?
Kitty, it's more like kidney. It's not kitty.
Interesting, yeah. because the tongue, when it says the T words, has to be at the tip. Tip. Tie. See if you can say after, everybody say together, tip,
Tip,
tie,
tie,
Tie.
two,
two,
Two.
top.
top,
Top.
So those are the words I give to people when they need to practice the tip of the tongue. In myofunctional therapy, we practice the placement of the tip of the tongue. And so here's the roof of your mouth. The tip of the tongue is supposed to touch a quarter of an inch behind the front teeth. So if you go a quarter of an inch behind the front teeth, the first exercise is to put the tip of your tongue there.
T, T, T,
T, t, t, t,
T, T, T,
Test.
t, t,
Test.
T, T,
T, T, top. Say
T,
the words T, top,
T.
T.
two, two,
Top.
top, two.
two,
Mine flattens out. Two,
time,
Time.
time,
time,
Time.
tip,
tip,
Tip.
tip.
tip,
Tip.
It's tip, it's not pick, it's tip. T, t, t.
tip.
The T words. Yeah.
Tip.
Okay, so I can't hear a couple of people because they've got their mutes on. If you're okay with that, that's fine. If you want to unmute, I'll listen to you.
Kip.
Tip,
Kip.
It's not kip. It sounds like you're saying K-I-P.
Kip.
Tip.
You
It's
want to
T.
say T-I-P, the tip of your tongue.
Tip.
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 Top.
That's,
Time.
that's,
Two. T. Tip.
Tip.
good. Good, Helga.
Two. Time. T. It's a lot easier to drop the jaw with the tongue a little more forward like that. When I was
That's
doing it before with you, I was really putting my tongue far back on the hard palate, and it was harder to drop the jaw all the way down. It's a lot easier with the tongue a quarter inch. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're supposed to put the T sound comes from a quarter of an inch behind the front teeth tip. And if your frenulum is long enough, you can pronounce the words more easily. Tip, time.
T.
Yeah, that's it.
Does it have to
Okay.
be, does it have to be the exact tip of your tongue? I find I can do it if I use like an eighth of an inch inside the tip of my tongue. It comes out
That's
clear.
fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Fine for you. You may need to make some compensations unless you want to get your frenulum snipped.
Not
So-
now.
All right, now I want to show you something magnificent that you won't find probably most other places, is the discovery that I made of where the first cervical vertebrae sits.
I would love that.
And you can actually touch it. So in the picture that we have on the screen, you can see the open mouth, right? Right behind the uvula on the back wall, you may find a little bump. For me, it's quite pronounced. That's the front of your vertebrae sticking through, the first one. Atlas, called the atlas. So I'm going to touch it for you. Hopefully you can see it. Let's see, how do I do this? Now, if you put me on pin, or do you see me if you put me on speaker view, since I'm doing the speaking, then my picture will take over the whole screen, my face, and that'll make it easier for you to see. If you don't find speaker view, if you look in the upper right corner of your picture, in your corner of your picture, you have some choices where there's 3 dots. It says mute, and then to the side of it, there's 3 dots, right?
No, we don't have 3 dots.
Do you have a picture of everybody on the screen?
I have standard side-by-side speaker, side-by-side gallery, exit full screen. But I
Okay,
don't
so-
have full screen.
Do you have
Maybe this-
gallery? Are you on the gallery screen? Go to gallery. But
Because
on-
you have that picture up, I can't go to gallery. Like that's
Um,
an option. Because
Okay, so-
because the picture's up.
You have to put it
I
at
see, I
view
see, I
side by
see.
side speaker, and you can resize
Okay, now
resize and enlarge Sarah's face.
Okay, that's an idea. And I just stopped the share to see if that would help. And I'm putting it on speaker view.
Yes, so that
Ah,
helps.
yes,
Speaking.
sticker.
There's the speaker view.
Speaker view works, but as soon as someone else talks, they become the prominent speaker.
Right.
That's right. But if you put it on, if you click on my picture, there's the 3 dots to the side of the word mute. Do you see the 3 dots to the side of the picture? Of my picture? Do you see my picture? Go back and click gallery view. Okay, and then do you see the word mute? If you put your cursor in the picture of where your face is, there should be a word that says mute or unmute. Do you see that? In the upper right corner, and then there's 3 little dots inside of, for me, it's inside of a blue box next to the word mute. Or if you put there's another choice you might have, which is to put it as pin. If you pin your picture, if you pin my picture, I will be in the front. Now, you just see me now?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's take it from there. Now I'm putting my flashlight on. And in the back of my throat, do you see a white bump?
Yes.
See that?
Yes.
That's my atlas. It's really far back and I can touch it without gagging.
You had to practice that.
I did. See if you can do it. See if you can find your atlas sticking through.
I don't see your uvula though.
Right. Either do
What?
right.
Why don't I see your uvula?
Oh, there it is.
I
Those.
lifted it. I lifted it out of the way.
You are talented. Okay.
See if you can lift your uvula out of the way.
I've never done that. Lift your uvula.
You engage the palatopharyngeal arch muscles, which are called the vellae palatini, and you can lift your uvula voluntarily, which you do when you go to the doctors and they put something in your throat, the tongue depressor, and say, open wide. And you
Oh,
try to open wide. Oh.
oh. Doesn't go up. Mine doesn't go up. Oh.
No.
It doesn't. I got mine up.
Oh, really?
You can go up and down.
It went up. Yeah.
You can teach yourself to raise it and lower it.
I can't access that. And my uvula looks so big.
Oh, let's see your uvula, Helga. You can just put that flashlight now. You want to go right to the center of your computer where your camera is. Oh, it's completely black now. What did you do? It's completely
Oops.
black.
Sorry, that's my thumb.
Yeah.
That's
Your
my,
thumb. Yeah.
I was trying to,
Yeah.
It just flashes up.
We almost got you. I'm going to put you on pin. I'm going to pin Helga. Okay, so now what were you saying? There's your uvula. You're lifting it up and down.
I am.
Yeah. You try to make it bigger, the opening bigger. Try to drop your tongue in the back and get your flashlight to the side so we can see you. There you go. That's the idea. Pull your tongue down. Pull your tongue down. Like you're trying to see into it. Yeah, but pull it down in the back. Yeah, put your flashlight back on your tongue.
Can't always do that.
Yeah, it's hard to do that. So you're going to have fun teaching yourself how to move the back of your tongue and lift your lift your uvula.
Yeah.
And so if you sing, it's very important. Who sings? Who knows how to sing? I want you all to. I want you to play with this now. Is to open your mouth, drop your tongue in the back, and make the biggest cathedral inside your head that you can and make a sound. Use your flashlight.
You're laughing.
Oh, that's.
Now try to lift. All right, let's talk about the tongue for a second. Where does the tongue attach?
The jaw?
Tongue does not attach to the jaw.
The back of the
Mine
throat.
does.
All the way in the back on the bottom.
What's the name of where it attaches?
Oh, I don't know. I need a picture again.
Okay, let's go to the picture. I'll have to share again. Here we go.
Does it attach to the hyoid?
It is attached to the hyoid, Phil.
What's a highlight?
Hyoid, the hyoid. Let's see if I have a picture of the hyoid here. I'd have to get you a different picture. The hyoid is right here. Let me see if I can get that better.
Hyoid?
A hyoid,
Oh,
the hyoid bone right here. The hyoid bone. The tongue attaches to the hyoid bone right here. Let me see if I can get a better picture. Yes. I have to move things around. Okay. The hyoid bone is a small U-shaped, solitary bone. It's the only bone in the body that's not touching another bone. It forms a joint with the tongue, which is not a bone, so it's unique.
Interesting.
Yeah, this hyoid bone is situated in the midline of the neck, in the front of the base of the mandible, and posteriorly
I can't hear you.
No, we can't hear either. Can you hear me?
I can hear you,
Yeah.
but not
Sarah,
that.
can you hear? No.
I can't hear Sarah either.
No. Somebody have a phone to call her?
How about putting something in the chat to her?
True.
Here,
I don't know how to do that.
I'm doing it.
Oh, good.
You knew that hyoid bone was going to be a problem.
It wasn't attached to anything
Yeah.
strong. Although the tongue can do a lot of damage.
That's a good point.
When you
She-
click
said-
chat, you just write a mess, what happens?
Yeah,
She
you
said
just-
she's working on her headset. Sorry.
Oh,
Just so you know, I don't know if you saw the chat.
she can hear everyone.
She replied that she's working on her headset.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay,
Oh, back. You're back.
you're back, and now I'm trying to get connected to my headset.
We lost you pretty early on there. Uh-oh. No, no,
I have Quizlets.
back to the chat.
Quizlets.
The female with
All right. I just told her we lost her again.
On your larynx. I told you my story of going to the doctor, telling him I have a lump in my throat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh, and he said to me, Doris, it's your larynx. And I said, no, it's moving. And he said, Doris, it's your larynx.
your
And I-
larynx.
But my larynx.
Uh-huh.
And he kept talking to me. And then finally he said, okay, Doris, come in. And I come in and I show it to him. And he says to me again, Doris, it's your larynx.
Oh, you don't know, you don't know.
Okay, I'm taking this off.
Oh, good.
So now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I apologize. My phone just, my headset just decided to put you on mute. Put me on mute, so I don't know how to change that. I tried. So we'll just keep going here. The hyoid bone is really a key bone. You have a lot of muscles that attach, and what is the most important muscle, I would say, that attaches to the hyoid?
The tongue.
The tongue.
Oh,
So
that was the question.
What happens when you move your tongue around to your hyoid bone? So put your fingers, let's see if you can find your hyoid. I need to see you looking for your hyoid. You find the hyoid in your throat. The hyoid is here. And you can wiggle it side to side like a wishbone. Now, I happen to have a lot of glands around that wishbone, so I had to push them out of the way. But if once you find it, you can really swing it side to side. So Gloria and Doris, can you find it?
I
Helga,
don't know. I'm pushing on something that moves side to side. I have no idea.
Helga is higher up for you. It's right under,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I got it now.
Stephanie, you have to take your scarf off because I can't see your neck, or you go over your neck. There you go.
It's right under your jaw.
It's right under your jaw.
That doesn't feel like a bone.
Well, it does if you try to squeeze it.
When I squeeze it, it kind of hurts.
Yeah. So now I want you to swallow and tell me what happens to your hyoid.
It's hard.
It goes up and down.
It goes up and down.
Yeah.
Which way does it go first?
Up.
Goes up first. Can you feel your hyoid going up? Now I want you to watch my fingers. I'm going to show you something amazing. Here it goes. Now, Stephanie, I've got you on the speaker for some reason. I'm going to pin myself so that you can see me. Okay.
Mhm.
Can you do that?
No.
I'm-
Why would I
I'm-
want to do that?
Well, if you're singing
Wow.
or performing, you want to be able to move your hyoid, and you naturally move your hyoid. You just weren't aware of it.
Because
I'm
it's
moving.
wow.
But if you push your tongue against the roof of your mouth and then relax it and then push it and then relax it, push your tongue up and then relax it, naturally your hyoid will go up and down with your tongue.
You know, when I activate more the very back of my tongue, it's more accessible for me. You know, and it feels like, you know, what the baby must be doing, right? When it's eating. Like as soon as it happened, I was like, whoa,
Right here.
something,
there,
right?
Right here.
Can you see me do it sideways? Did you see it?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, now what happens? Sujit, are you with us? Sujit?
Yes, I'm trying it. I'm trying it along. It's very
we-
interesting.
Can we see you or do you want me to stop the recording? Okay, thank you. And can you put your fingers on the,
Can you
put your
find?
fingers? Yeah, let me make sure you got the, grab it like that.
This one?
Yeah, I think you're not quite on the outer portion. There you go. You feel it?
Yeah.
There's really not a lot of light, so it's hard to see. If you had your flashlight, I could see better. but-
I don't have a flashlight. I didn't realize I didn't get the
Okay.
email.
Yeah, that looks good. Okay, now if you push your tongue up, what happens to it?
Recedes.
Yes, go up and relax, go up and relax, go up and relax.
I can't find it.
Higher up here. It's right under the jaw. Yeah, you're on one finger. That'll do it. If you find, what's the cartilage called that's below the hyoid?
Is that the cricoid?
Called the thyroid.
The thyroid cartilage.
And that has a little V that Sujit is touching. And that's not the hyoid. The hyoid is horizontal and it's above the cricoid, above the thyroid. So then you have, this is your thyroid, and this is where your vocal mechanism is resting behind the thyroid. This is the thyroid cartilage. And if you go down, you'll hit another knob. That's your cricoid. And you could also push your tongue up and down, and you'll feel everything moving.
Yeah, I feel that. It's like a little round ball going up and down.
Okay. Good, that's important because the cricoid and the thyroid have a hinge joint. So when you're singing, that hinge joint changes position. So if you put your finger here and you sing do, re, mi and go all the way up. Do, re, mi,
Mi, fa,
sing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol.
do,
Di, da, di,
do, re, mi,
da, di, da, di,
sol, la, ti, do,
down.
do,
Is that amazing?
Yeah.
do, re, mi,
Ooh, just do a slide.
do.
Oh, I can feel it going up and down, right?
Huh?
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Am I moving the hyoid? I don't know what
No,
I'm moving.
you're not. You've lost the hyoid, but it's still there. Your fingers have to
I lost the
grab.
hyoid. My hyoid's gone.
The hyoid's gone.
Oh no.
No, grab your hyoid. Don't let it run away. There you go. Now bring your chin down, and it's right under your, right at the bottom of your chin. And widen your fingers. Yeah, and then go back. Push your fingers back. And then try to squeeze that hyoid. Swing it side to side. That looks like it. Everybody has a different hyoid. It's fascinating if you're in the class in person. One, you can, some people are very narrow and some people are very wide. So then if you go down, you'll find that V, the cutout of your thyroid cartilage.
So what is this movement then? This going up and down. What is that moving then?
So your muscles under your chin that attach to the hyoid are contracting, or in the body mind centering term, they're condensing. And it's lifting your thyroid and your hyoid up.
I see.
And since your tongue is connected to your hyoid, when you're pushing your tongue up, you're lifting your hyoid. You go down.
So are you moving your hyoid independent of your thyroid?
No. And that's an idea. It's a good idea. I'll play with that one. All right, so at some point, I'll teach you the vocal mechanics, and that's an interesting class too, but let's stick with our swallowing. I think you've got a good idea about the swallowing now. Here you see the mandible, the bone, and then you have the hyoid bone, and here you have the larynx, which is actually behind this thyroid cartilage.
I can't see, I can only see you because you pinned yourself. I don't see the share. Are you sharing?
Okay, thank you. Let me get to that. You see it now?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, there, thank you. Here's the hyoid bone, right here. Here is that little V that you can feel with your finger on the larynx. And then this is the thyroid cartilage. And behind the thyroid cartilage, which you're not seeing, are the vocal cords. Okay, and here is a bigger view of the hyoid itself. And here's the side view of the hyoid. So here you have the body of the hyoid. You have the lesser horns. This is where there's important attachments. And you have the greater horns. There are very important attachments in all the places along the hyoid. You have your muscles that are called the suprahyoid muscles, and you have your muscles that are called the infrahyoid muscles. One of the infrahyoid muscles is something that we've focused on in body mind centering. It is a muscle that comes from the hyoid bone and goes downward. And I will try to find a picture of it because it's important to your development. And the reason it's important to your development because it connects to, does anybody know where the omohyoid connects?
To the collarbone? No?
It goes under the collarbone and attaches to
The jaw?
the scapula. Yeah.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, is that amazing? So here's the omohyoideus. It attaches to the bottom here. It's an infra, meaning below, hyoid muscle. And it travels down. Ooh, sorry. Ooh. There's a better picture. The muscle travels down and goes through a loop that's connected to the collarbone. It's a little fascial loop made specifically to hold the omohyoideus in place, omohyoid. And then this travels down and attaches to the scapula let's see if we can find an attachment site for the scapula.
Sorry, the scapula is where?
Your scapula is your shoulder blade. It has two bellies.
It's your shoulder blade, the wing.
Yeah, I want to find you the exact place. You can feel it. Well, it's talking about, it doesn't talk about where the insertion is, other than through that. Muscles of the neck, omohyoid. Let's see if we can get a better picture of the omohyoid. Ah, here you go. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a view from the front. It comes from the hyoid. There's an attachment loop here that holds it in place, and it attaches into the back right where this little groove is in your scapula. It's right medial
These
to
are the
that
wings.
groove.
This whole
The ribs,
square
yeah.
thing back
Where will
there.
your ribs hurt?
Sorry,
Where will your ribs hurt? When you fall?
behind. You can't see it
Oh, I see.
on the outside of your body.
So here's the origin. It says the superior border of the scapula near the suprascapular notch. And then there's a belly that goes into, it's a part of the intermediate tendon, and then the inferior belly goes the superior and inferior come through this little slip of tissue and go up to the hyoid bone, to the body. So why is that important? Well, you probably wouldn't know because you haven't been studying development, but in
I
development,
wonder whether it's part of the walking.
eventually it is, because what happens is when you're sucking and rooting and swallowing properly, that hyoid is moving up and down, and that's strengthening your tongue, your suck. As that gets stronger, your neck gets stronger. The omohyoid, because you're lifting your head, gets stronger. When the baby lifts its head and it's on its tummy, it starts to engage in the shoulders, the scapula, and pushing. So the head gets connected to the push of the arms through the omohyoid. And the whole tone of the body is set by that sucking of the tongue and swallowing. So if you have a weak suck, your whole body will be affected, because developmentally you won't be able to develop the strength you need to push your head up and to push your chest up and to push your body eventually up onto your hands and knees. So that's why we singled out the omohyoid. It's the only muscle there that connects to the scapula from your throat to your shoulders.
Fascinating.
It's really fascinating. So we have other muscles that help to open the jaw and muscles that close the jaw. Let's look at those. What are those? Do you have any idea?
Zygomatic muscles.
Well, what is attached to the zygoma, the bone?
The temporal, no. So,
It's actually the masseter that's attached there. And what does the masseter do? I mean, I'm asking the unfair questions because you haven't taken the course that I'm telling you about.
yeah, masseter helps with chewing. The
Masseter helps with chewing, and it attaches to the zygoma here. So when you bite down, you can feel that get engaged. So we're going to go to the muscles now. You're going to see I'm scrolling through the agenda for today. The muscles of the jaw, the ones that are depressing and the ones that are closed are divided into the depressors and the closers. So the ones that are closing are called the elevators. So you've got the masseter with its new part, which is the muscle, the masseter called the coronoid masseter, a newly discovered part of the masseter, a separate masseter muscle. Under
you're
the
showing a
other.
picture, Sarah. We don't see. We're not seeing the
Oh.
picture of.
Okay, thank you. Looking at my agenda, we're looking at the masseter muscle, the newly discovered muscle, a third part of the muscle that attaches to the coronoid process of the mandible. We're looking at the depressors, which open your mouth. They drop this down, and the elevators, which close your mouth. So the masseter, if you put your fingers on the outside and bite down, you should feel it shut tightly. And if you're really overdoing it, that muscle will be quite developed. And then the temporalis, which is the next muscle, is in the temples. So you can, again, you can bite down. And you should feel a little bumping, a little movement. It's up here. And that muscle fans out like a silver dollar, the shape of a silver dollar, and attaches to the jaw, the TMJ. So if you bite and close down, you should feel it pop out. So put your fingers up here on your temples. And then close your teeth together. Do you feel it?
Yes.
So if you have a headache or you have TMJ, you can do gentle massage on that muscle. It's very effective. Does anybody have a problem or pain in that area? Okay. Okay, so it's a great area to work on, temporalis. Now, as far as a very important muscle, you have what's called the pterygoids. Have you heard of the pterygoids?
Yes.
Okay, let's see if I can get to sharing this.
That's the muscle that starts with a P, right?
Yes. It's related to the dragons. You know, there's what is that bird that has a pteropter? Sorry, I don't have that ready for you, but I always think of that flying pterygoid bird. But you have this pterygoid muscle. Let me see if I can find for you.
Listen to my story.
What?
Listen to my
Oh, is
story.
that you?
Okay. So the lateral pterygoid, if you've ever had TMJ, it's a key muscle. To help reduce pain, you need to put your finger in the corner of your mouth. Can you see this picture? Are you with
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the lateral pterygoid. It's a two-headed fan-shaped muscle in the temporal fossa. It is one of four masticatory muscles, along with the medial pterygoid, temporalis, and masseter muscles. They all act on the temporal mandibular joint to enable chewing. The lateral pterygoid, it has two heads, and the lateral lies above the medial pterygoid. And so here we get a picture of the pterygoid muscle. Here's the lateral, they call it the externus. And here's the medial, which is called the internus. And I can show you. See, I'll stop the share for a second. On the skeleton, if you go inside your head, you'll see that it's marked. This is the origin of the lateral pterygoid, and this is the origin of the medial pterygoid. This goes down into your jaw. Goes down. Can't quite get to it, into your jaw. So you have to go into your mouth to get to it. In the bottom left corner, where there's a blue, where my thumb is, that's where the medial pterygoid attaches. I can't get everything in there, so let's see. Yeah. So here's the jaw. It's going to go in this diagonal. That's the medial. The lateral pterygoid is superior and it goes this direction. So it comes from deep inside. Comes from behind your teeth at the top and comes forward. So now if you gently open your mouth, let your jaw drop down. And then if you extend your jaw further, your finger will slide forward. That's your lateral pterygoid pulling your jaw forward. And that is what gets affected. The pterygoids get affected with TMJ because those muscles get really tight. Now let's talk about the proper opening and closing. Your jaw, when you work on swallowing, the first movement of the jaw should be to open down and back like this. Let me see everybody just open down and back. Okay, so it's not a big opening, it's only about an inch. Okay, Claudia, are you still with us?
What's going back?
I
You
know,
said
can't-
down and back.
Yeah, going back. Your jaw is coming back as opposed to going forward. The next movement is a glide. The first movement is a hinge. And I find that many people confuse the two into one movement. What you want to do is first open down. And then to increase the width or the opening, you use the lateral pterygoid, engage the lateral pterygoid, and it opens you wider and pulls your jaw forward. And then the medial closes you.
I feel like my whole mouth is sore now. I'm like, oh, I guess I just use it one way.
You can try different things. It's important to know, and it's important to experience different parts of your anatomy. That's why I call it living anatomy, so you can experience it. So here's the hinge. So the jaw is dropping down. And then if you want to bite into an apple, you can't bite into an apple like this. If you were to bite an apple like this, your jaw would hit your throat and close off your throat and your esophagus. So it's more like a snake. You know, the snake can dislocate its jaw and open the jaw so widely it can swallow a rat or a huge animal. It's amazing. So we're just going to divide the two movements. This is the hinge where you drop down, and then the pterygoid, the lateral pterygoid, pulls the head of the TMJ, the condyle, forward, and that allows you to open. Then you use the medial pterygoid to pull it back.
The medial is a much wider, flatter muscle, it looks like.
Yes, and that's on purpose, obviously, so that it can do that work of closing and gliding you back. And then with the help of other elevators, closes the joint altogether. Did you understand that?
So Sarah, how would you say the glide path of the mandible while closing is? It seems like it is not an up and down. It seems like an arc.
It is an arc, and it is a forward. It is a forward. So here's your hinge, which is going, you can see the jaw is going back, Stephanie, right? You see it's going
Yes.
back?
Yes.
Where's Stephanie? She was asking about it. Well, anyway, it drops back, down and back. But then when you arc it, you slide the heads of the mandibles. Stephanie was just saying that when you open the jaw drops down and back. You were asking, how is it that it's going back? You see on the model, it goes back. Now, when you engage the lateral pterygoid, it pulls forward, and there is an arc. But the arc is at the head of the mandible, where the TMJ is.
And so when it goes back, is it first when the mandible is closing, does it first glide back in and
Yes.
then close the hinge?
Yes.
So
Wow.
what is it when it feels as though a clump of food has stuck in your throat? Is that at this point because you haven't opened your mouth? So
Could
that
be a
it
couple
goes-
of things in the proper swallow or the functioning of the swallow. You need to chew your food completely. So you're breaking up the
Right.
food, and then you're forming with chemicals from your saliva. You're
Right.
breaking down some of the proteins, and then you're forming a bolus in your throat, and that comes to the back of your tongue. Now you're supposed to form a tube
Mhm.
that put the tip of your tongue goes to the roof of your mouth, quarter of an inch behind the front teeth, and that bolus can slide down the tube that your tongue forms into
Right.
your throat. Now, there's cranial nerves that are engaged with this action. So let's look at the cranial nerves for a second so you can see.
I thought as you got older, your throat closed up.
Well, you know, it's like they say your eggs get old. I don't know if I want to believe that. So
My eggs get old.
well, you can say that's why you can't have a baby when you're older, supposedly, with your own eggs. That's a whole discussion. I like to think we can stay young forever. So here, let's look at swallowing, since that's a topic. This is very lengthy, so I'm not sure this is going to be. Let's see. We'll look at it for a second.
So Sarah, when you said about making the bolus, can the bolus also be made by the tongue pressing against the hard palate? Versus is it just the the chewing of the teeth against each other, or is it also the tongue pressing against the hard palate?
Well, it's a combination, but your teeth, let's go to the teeth. Here, I put the teeth in here. The central and lateral incisors cut and nip your food. The canines, which are on the side, can pierce and tear up your food. The premolars that are next to the molars in the back and the molars crush and grind the food. And depending on your bite, whether you have a normal bite, which is a class 1, or class 2, you're overjet with your teeth going forward. I have an overjet. Or in class 3, you have an underbite where the mandible is in front of the maxilla. So you see a stereotypical, like a gorilla face where the lower jaw is forward. So those are the bones and what the teeth do. And then you have saliva coming in and helping to break down what you're eating and tearing up and chewing. And at that point, you're not pushing the food up against the roof of your mouth because you're not ready to swallow yet. But your tongue is helping with the masticating process. The tongue is using, tongue is pushing the food around so it gets chewed up. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we have some shorter videos. Let me see if I can find that on swallowing. Here's one. Can you see this?
Yes,
Yes.
Love the music.
This side view of the head highlights structures involved with swallowing. That includes the tongue, teeth, epiglottis, and esophagus. The teeth grind and chop food into tiny pieces, while the glands in the mouth moisten it with saliva. Then the tongue pushes the moistened food, or bolus, to the back of the throat and down into the esophagus, which leads to the stomach. Let's watch the swallowing process again. First, the tongue pushes the food into the throat. Next, the epiglottis, a small but important flap of tissue, folds over the voice box at the top of the windpipe. This keeps food from going down the wrong way. Finally, the esophagus contracts and moves food towards the stomach. Excuse me.
Did I play that again?
maybe once more.
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
I like the gulping sound.
Yeah.
This side view of the head highlights structures involved with swallowing. That includes the tongue, teeth, epiglottis, and esophagus. The teeth grind and chop food into tiny pieces, while the glands in the mouth moisten it with saliva. Then the tongue pushes the moistened food, or bolus, to the back of the throat and down into the esophagus, which leads to the stomach. Let's watch the swallowing process again. First, the tongue pushes the food into the throat. Next, the epiglottis, a small but important flap of tissue, folds over the voice box at the top of the windpipe. This keeps food from going down the wrong way. Finally, the esophagus contracts and moves food towards the stomach. Excuse me.
Sometimes, how does it happen that the food goes down and the epiglottis doesn't close?
Yeah, so sometimes the sphincters aren't working quite the same. Sometimes the cranial nerves are involved. So the nerve innervation is a little weaker. So we could go and look at this again.
So it means you're swallowing too soon, perhaps.
It's very interesting what happens. Let me just see where I am now. See, I pressed the wrong button. Let's see. I want to go to my anatomy class. Well, here you see a picture of the cranial nerves and
Yes,
where they are. This is the head. And you have the hypoglossal, which has to do with the tongue. You have the vagus nerve, which has to do with taste, and the glossopharyngeal nerve, which also has to do with taste. And different parts of the tongue taste like sour, bitter, and sweet. So that's an interesting picture. And I wanted to talk about the cranial nerves, but I have to go back to my desktop and find my agenda. So to give me a second. That's so funny. Got it. Okay, so cranial nerves. Let's look at the cranial nerves. So sometimes you can't swallow because your cranial nerves are affected. And sometimes there's actually the sphincter that's closed at between the bottom of the esophagus and your stomach. So that valve is.
Are you sharing, Sarah? Because we see you.
Okay, I'm gonna put on the video of the cranial nerves, or the website of the cranial nerves.
Sarah, can you also share that URL later with us of that swallowing video? I don't know if it's
Will I share the address of it? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, is that publicly available?
It's publicly available,
Okay.
and you can get to it. If you take a picture of this, you can get to it. That's not on. Let's see. Here's the swallowing one.
We don't see anything. You're not
Oh,
sharing.
yeah, okay. All right. You'll have to ask me afterwards for that, okay?
Okay.
So now I want to share the screen with you. Okay. Can you see me now? You can see everything? And here's the
Just see
share button.
you.
Okay. Okay, so as far as why you can't, sometimes you have narrowing, you have some actual narrowing, and I believe it's called atelectasis. Oh no, it's called echolalia, where you have a narrowness of the esophagus so the food sticks in your throat. We'll look at this guy's incredible. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He is the ninja nerd.
Yes, he is so detailed.
He is a ninja nerd. Let's see. How do I get to that?
Well, I find as I'm
Has to
getting
happen
older, I have to
is we need
think
the
more
tongue
about
to
swallowing.
take on a special shape.
Say that
You have
again.
muscles of the tongue.
Say that.
I have to think about swallowing.
As you've gotten older.
Yes, I never thought about it. Like I'll have to put my mind to make an effort to swallow. Not all the time. Anyway, that's I don't understand why.
Yeah. So that could be something to do with the nerves that are initiating that action.
Down by
There
the
we go.
mastication process, we mixed it with the saliva, and now it's a nice compact mass here, which we're going to refer to as a bolus. The next event that has to happen is we need the tongue to take on a special shape. So you have muscles of the tongue. They're called intrinsic muscles of the tongue. And what they do is they change the shape of the tongue in such a way that they form like this central trough. It's like a longitudinal central trough. So imagine here's the tongue, and here's my little trough here. That's one thing that the intrinsic muscles of the tongue are going to do. They're going to form a central trough. The next thing is there's going to be other muscles, and these are the extrinsic muscles of the tongue. And the extrinsic muscles of the tongue are actually going to elevate the tongue so that the tip of the tongue touches the actual palate. That's so cool. So not only we formed this nice little longitudinal look, we can do it like this actually. Look, this is actually a lot better. Here, we'll have the tongue up like this, and then we'll have like, imagine like a little tunnel there. There's like a little kind of like longitudinal tunnel. The bolus is sitting right here in this. Okay?
Sarah, I see a still. I don't see a
One.
moving video.
We elevated
You
the tongue. So we have
say
I
that
have-
again?
I have a still picture. I don't have a moving video. Is this supposed to be a moving video?
Yeah, this is a moving video. I see a moving video. Who else does not see the moving video?
Yeah, we don't see the video. We just see the still.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay,
When you stopped it to answer my question, that's when it stopped.
okay, let's see if we can get it going again.
Hey, there's Sarah.
Yeah, let's see.
Looking strong.
Looking strong.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now you see this guy?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
we had to elevate
Is that working?
tongue.
Yep.
Okay, so we're
Second
gonna
thing
skip ahead
is
on
we
this
had-
guy because it will be a longer time. I won't be able to do that long. As he goes,
Form a trough.
see if
So
I
the
get this.
second thing here is we had to form
Okay, so he goes into,
right down into the pharynx. So we create this downward slope that'll allow for this bolus,
yeah, this is almost an hour long.
third division or the mandibular division. So that was significant. The next thing that we had to remember is the salivation process.
Okay, so
And the whole
let's say we
purpose
get
of
to
the
the
salivation-
swallowing. We do the swallowing.
Too, if you wanted to know that also. But again,
Downward
trying to get
slope
the
of the
basic
tongue.
parts here. So that is what we consider to be a part of the oral phase. Now here's what I want you to know before we get into the next diagram. Remember I told you that it was bordered, the posterior border here. I'm going to create like a little border here. This we said is the palatoglossal arch. Once the bolus comes into contact, I mean he just even touches this area here, boom, we are no longer in the oral phase. We're going to go into the pharyngeal phase now, okay? So that is what I want you to remember. Once the bolus touches this palatoglossal arch, we are no longer in the oral phase, and now we're going to go into the pharyngeal phase. Okay, so now we have to hit the pharyngeal phase. So what did I tell you before? I said it had to first hit what structure? The palatoglossal arch. So now what I need to do before we continue to go on throughout the pharyngeal phase is you need to know what is the palatoglossal arch. So come over here a little bit with me and look at this structure here. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at, this is the lips, right? Lower,
Now you
upper
guys
lips.
remember doing this,
And you're
right?
looking into the oral cavity. Like if I had you guys open your mouth and you're looking in, I'm looking in, this is what you're gonna see.
Remember looking in your mouths?
This little sucker right here, the frickin' speed bag, that's your uvula, okay? Then there's an arch right next to it. This one right here and that one right there. The one towards the midline in this case. But really, in reality, it's in the back. This one right here, this arch. So I'm gonna put here 1, okay? Then I'm gonna put here 2. 1 is specifically the palatopharyngeal arch. And 2 is the one that's a little bit more anterior. That is the palatoglossal arch. Remember I told you, once you hit number 2, the palatoglossal arch, we are no longer in the oral phase, we're in the pharyngeal phase. There's a reason why. There's a bunch of nerve fibers, a bunch of different sensory receptors that are super, super concentrated in this area here, at the palatoglossal arch, the palatopharyngeal arch, even in between. So you see how there's a space where these little green structure is? That space right there, we'll write that down here in a second, but that space right there is even called the tonsillar fossa. So here, look, I'll put number 3. That little space in there, that space is called the tonsillar fossa. That area, and even one more area, which is the posterior pharyngeal wall. All of these structures are super innervated by a special cranial nerve. That cranial nerve is going to be the glossopharyngeal nerve, or cranial nerve 9. So this is what happens. I want you guys to imagine, I'm just going to put it kind of like in this area. I'm going to put like a nice blue fibers here. And these blue fibers are just literally representing all of these fibers right here. I just don't want to get the diagram too cluttered. And I'm going to bring this up here. It actually goes to a special ganglion and then goes into the central nervous system. And again, what is it picking up? Remember what it touched? What touched this area right here? Look here. This guy right there. This little dude right here, that's our bolus. So once it touches, it stimulates the glossopharyngeal nerve fibers, the afferent fibers. Once it does that, it stimulates action potentials down this axon and goes into the central nervous system. So these fibers, they're going to come up into the central nervous system, and they're going to activate, technically they will activate a bunch of other structures like the nucleus attractus solitarius, which then can stimulate the nucleus ambiguus. But what I want you to remember is this glossopharyngeal nerve is going to lead to the activation of another cranial nerve, vagus nerve, cranial nerve 10. Now remember, the nucleus there is technically the nucleus ambiguous, but again, we're not trying to overload ourselves with that. We're just focusing on afferent fibers of the glossopharyngeal nerve here are being stimulated, cranial nerve 9 coming up, activating the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is then going to come down and do a bunch of different things.
Okay, we're gonna
But
stop.
before
We're gonna stop because we're going into detail, and I see that somebody just dropped out, so I guess it was Helga.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. So who was
No,
it?
Stephanie said, she put a chat that she had to go.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, I'm just looking that. Okay, so Ninja Nerd, and yeah, it is amazing. He's amazing. He does a lot of lectures online, and you can track him and really enjoy listening to him. I just want to draw up my agenda. And you can go to Ninja Nerd, deglutition, gastrointestinal. You'll get to it. There are 173,000 views on that one. And I can also share to you via email to Sujit. What's your email address?
It's philsujit@gmail. I can find this video, Sarah. It was the previous one that you had put on swallowing, the short video. That was the one that was very interesting, the animation of that. But that's later, we can do it later. It's okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys. So let's just go back, and you'll see that I mentioned these nerves that have to do with swallowing. And if the nerves are not connecting, or there's something weakened about them, it may be harder to swallow. And it could be that the throat itself is narrowing and tense. And there are things that you can do, such as having an injection into your sphincter down there, which will release this closure. So you'll have an open sphincter between your esophagus and your stomach. So you can have different things that are going on. That's called echolalia, which causes this narrowing, and it's a painful condition. where you can't really swallow.
Sarah, question.
Yeah.
In the swallowing, I've heard people talk about the body of the tongue and the back of the tongue. This is difficult for me to, is the body or the back involved in the swallowing, or is it just the tip of the tongue which creates that trough, that tunnel?
The whole tongue is involved in swallowing, the whole tongue. The tip of the tongue needs to go to the back of behind a quarter of an inch behind the front teeth. That's a really important place. And then the middle of the tongue contracts the intrinsic muscles and they form the trough. And the back of the tongue, in effect, drops open so that it's like a dump truck. The food can fall in without pressure, just drop down in a proper swallow. So there's no action of the tongue. Some people, because of the way they learn to nurse, push the food forward instead of letting the tongue drop and open and slide the food back. Because when they were nursing, the milk came in so fast that the only way they could survive and clear their airway is they pushed the tongue forward or hit between the middle of the teeth. So when you swallow, where's your tongue going?
Back.
Wow. Yes, it's going front. It doesn't drop down. That's very helpful. Okay.
Yeah, your tongue needs to go to the top of the mouth, a quarter of an inch behind the front teeth every time you swallow. So, and in the myofunctional therapy work that I do that's the first exercise, is to hold your tongue on the tip. Because generally you swallow twice a minute when you're awake and once a minute when you're asleep. And every time you swallow, you want your tongue to be on that spot, a quarter of an inch behind the front teeth. So the training of your tongue, you have to break down the old pattern, teach the new pattern and reinforce it. It involves a couple of months of time, depending on how much time you can do the little exercises. And the little exercises, in the next part of that series is to take a tiny elastic band and put it on the tip of your tongue and hold that to the roof of your mouth. And then you gradually increase more time. Because if you hold it up there for a minute, you'll begin to be swallowing. And you'll have to keep your tongue in the right place. Excuse me.
You swallow down the wrong
Swallowing.
way.
You mentioned dropping the back down it's like a dump truck. So when you're dropping it down, the tip is still holding the fort, so as to speak, at the tip, at the palate.
Yes, it's right behind the front teeth, quarter of an inch behind the front teeth.
And does it make a difference whether you swallow a food versus swallow water? Fluids is the same
Well, that's
action?
why I asked you can try now with water. It's easier with water. If you have a little water, you can put your tongue on the spot. What I do, another exercise is called the slurp and swallow. When you break down your swallow, one of the first exercises is to keep your tip of the tongue on the spot, put a little water in your mouth, keep your lips open, slurp, and swallow with your lips apart. And then if you're pushing your tongue forward, the water will spill out. You're really forcing yourself to keep your tongue up in that spot. Slurp. I have to see your mouth open. You're smiling. And swallow. Try to do it 10 times in a row. I don't hear a good slurp, so you're gonna need a good slurp.
Slurp.
And then
No.
swallow.
Full slurp.
So you can play with that.
Oh, difficult.
So that's the beginning of myofunctional therapy. Very helpful. It's easier if you go step by step, you just don't challenge yourself right away to try to do that swallow. So. Then once you're clear with the water, there's other exercises. You have to strengthen the lips, pull a button out of your lips, keep pulling against that. And then moving your lips, pulling the button, a stack of buttons into your mouth, Makes your lip strong, another exercise. Then practicing using the tip of the tongue with the words tip, top, to, tea, time, and do, did, dime, dear, deed. Those are D words. And loop, lip, lop, loot, lip. You use all the vowels with the L's. That's also in the front. Then you do the middle of the tongue, and then you do the back of the tongue. The back of the tongue sounds are egg, beg, take, bake. That uses the back of your tongue. So you build awareness of each part of your tongue, and then you connect it, coordinate it so you're swallowing properly.
What about S words?
F is a labial sound.
S.
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 S is in between your teeth. S.
Oh, okay.
So that gets you into speech pathology. It's very interesting. So look, I have you guys. We've covered a lot of things. We looked. Did we do this very first one? Did we do the? Yes, we looked at this. This is the very first thing we looked at online. We looked inside our mouths. We looked at the hard palate. We could even do more with the tongue. As the babies' tongues are really amazing, and your tongue is too. That you have, sometimes it's too big, sometimes it's too small. What's the shape of your tongue? Is it round? Is it horizontal? Is it a square? Is it moving in all directions? Can you move it up, down, left and right? Can you twist? Some people can extend the tongue and touch their chin. Can you pull your tongue all the way back? Can you press it up? Can you make it hollow like a cup? Can you snap back your tongue? That's the clucking. Do you have a peristaltic? You're supposed to have some kind of like a peristaltis on your tongue, so it helps to roll and wave your food to the back. Can you form that central groove? And then genetically, some people are able to form a tube. Some people can form a W with the lips, with the tongue, not with the lips, with the tongue. So then we discussed the tongue attachment to the hyoid bone, and we talked about closing your teeth and smiling. Where do you, we didn't talk about occlusion, so maybe that'd be for the next time. The tongue is used for manipulating food, swallowing, tasting, speaking, and cleaning. We talked about the teeth. We talked about the bite. We didn't do too much tracing of the bones, but we did touch the atlas, the mandible, the maxilla, the hard palate, the soft palate, the ethmoid. Oh, I didn't talk about the ethmoid. That's where your smell is. And that's just important for COVID right now, because the smell is often one of the nerves that's affected by COVID. We discussed the masseter. We discussed the temporalis, the pterygoids. The digastricus is the one that depresses the jaw, I mean, it draws it down. You can look at that yourself. And next time we can do more with the other things like vocal cords and embryology and reflexes and more on the cranial nerves. Okay?
Sarah, quick question. What
Yeah.
muscles usually help bring the tongue front and the back, bring it towards the back?
The muscle of the tongue itself.
The muscle of the tongue
itself.
itself. I see.
The tongue is a muscle.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, guys, you did a great job.
You did a great job, Sarah. Thank you.
Yes,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. Any comments that you wanted to send to me that would be appreciated, then I can use that in teaching my next class. And if you're interested in more, let me know so we can go on.
Are you continuing this as a series, Sarah? The swallowing?
Am I continuing as a series? Is that what you asked?
Yes.
I can if there's enough interest. So I'd like to do a series. It'd be fun to do a series. And I have to charge a little more than what I charged today. So. But let me know. Okay, thanks, guys. Yay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.